sustainability major at UT. He's originally from Argentina, so he's also an immigrant. And then Haley is going to run the show today. All right. And we have a really fabulous speaker, Mr. Jim Harrington, and then Daniel Llanes will come in a little bit and do a musical performance to help celebrate. All right.
Hello, thank you guys so much for being here. What I'm really excited about with the exhibit, of course, I am kind of in a unique position working on it because I am not Tejano and I am young. I was not active in these movements. And if you see, you look at those photos, this represents a long running history and multiple generations of people working, which I was not active in. But when I worked on this, I was immensely humbled at discovering the real history of Austin. For example, there is an IHOP on East 1st Street, which I was not aware was actually the place of Juarez Lincoln University, which was a historic and completely revolutionary university system that did, it was a university without walls and allowed people to get their degrees in whatever they wanted, and all their coursework was based on working with the community and doing several projects of mutual aid and community resilience. So what I like about Unificar and what I like about the Oakwood Chapel is that the exhibit represents more than just remembering history. Even though that's extremely important, Unificar is kind of a tool. It shows the different organizations and it connects them. I mean, we're all here and I am seeing several faces in the audience that I recognize from photos that I put in the exhibit, which is kind of crazy and humbling. If Jennifer, maybe you could pull up the map that we did for Unificar, the one that connects all the organizations. Okay, so this kind of shows what's going on in Austin. We have about, I want to say 50 to 60 organizations in Unificar. All of them are completely unique, but what's really interesting is that they're all connected. Even across 40-year to 50-year divides, these organizations have members that have participated in different foundings of other organizations. They collaborated together, they protested together, they were directly involved in the founding of each other. So as you can see, these are organizations all from throughout Austin and Texas, and they have a bunch of different relationships and connections between each other. So we have like LULAC, for example, the League of United Latino American Citizens, which is connected with the Brown Berets and all of that. We have about 8 sections, all covering from the credits and all of that, but we have arts organizations, we have professional and educational organizations, we have cultural and social organizations, and we have social justice organizations. Among these, if you just want to scroll through the headings and the list of different organizations that we have a bunch. Please feel free to look at this on your own time. It's been a really cool resource for us, and we've sent it out to various organizations who posted it on their ends and realized unique things about their own organization's histories that they weren't previously aware of. I think that one cool thing to highlight would be the different organizations. Some of the key ones might be the Brown Berets, if you want to click on that section, and LULAC. And then we have an article from the Mexican Arte Museum about the different terms that are involved that we use throughout the exhibit, because we use a lot of different terms. And that is all of us that were involved in it. So thank you guys so much for coming, and I'll turn it over to Haley. And thank you.
Hi, my name is Haley Caudillo. Just a little bit about myself before we begin, because I would love to get to know y'all next. I come from a farm worker family background, so a lot of the issues that I am passionate about do go with farm workers' justice and the farm worker rights, because while the fight has been long, especially from the reign of Cesar Chavez, there's still a lot of work to be done. But yeah, so that's basically a bigger rundown about me. Most of the work that I've done has been federally. My last internship, I got the opportunity to intern under the National Migrant Seasonal Head Start Association in Washington, D.C., and I am very happy that I was finally able to work locally in Texas here in Austin. So I guess that's a little rundown about me. The issues that I'm passionate in revolve around Latinos in secondary education and farm worker justice, like I said. I like bringing up the conversation of just getting to know each other, especially in this multi-generational mix of social activism and just community activism in general. I feel like over the years, there's a lot of multi-generational clashes between young activists and older generational activists, which honestly upsets me mainly because of the fact that I believe that instead of bashing each other or bumping heads with each other, we should learn from each other. Learn, just speak with each other, and most importantly, just gather the resources that maybe both sides need in order to fight the same fight. All of you, I always look up to the people that came before me when it came to community activism. I became more passionate about community activism once I realized that the true work really happens with the people. It happens on a small scale. And I really learned that when I actually got to work for the federal government. I worked for Unidos when I was in DC, formerly known as National Council de la Raza. Well, it was amazing to see like the process of like drafting bills and emailing all these important people. There's a certain privilege that comes with being ignorant when down being up there and just not really focusing what really gets done locally, especially in these amazing organizations that I had an honor of learning about. And I'm so honored that I'm able to be in the presence of people that have actually worked in these fights. We're going to be sending out an email for those that RVSP'd, and I guess the main goal with this whole event was to actually just come together and share resources for each other. So this is just the first page, but we went through resources such as like the types of organizations, more like for social umbrella and nonprofit organizations, and also information on how to run for office, especially for those younger people that have a fire in them that they really want to show out. But yeah, hopefully that gets sent out quickly. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, I'm very emotional right now. I love just learning and talking to people. And I really hope that today we can learn from each other. And especially in my generation, I feel like it's very important right now to look for our elders and to learn from them, because just there's like a lot of negativity in the world. The world is very janky right now, and there's a lot of people in power that don't want to see us thrive because they want to keep the system running as it has been. And I believe it's time for change. It's not going to happen overnight, obviously, but it happens in spaces like this. And with that, I would love to introduce to y'all Mr. James C. Harrington, also known as Jim Harrington, who has been an extreme prominent figure in the world of social activism. I cannot begin to explain the amount of work that you have done. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. It's emotional too. Sorry. As a farm worker family child, just to have you here in front of me is that you have actually worked closely with Cesar Chavez and with UFW. I am so excited to hear what you have to say, and I hope to learn from you to continue the big fight. Mr. James Harrington.
I think for me, it was an honor to work with farm workers almost my whole life. I started in Michigan for 7 years, and then in the Valley for 10, and then continued after that. So it's really an honor. I was so happy when I saw there was going to be a former farm worker here today. You know, I should be listening to y'all, because you all have done the work here in Austin, right? Brown Berets in particular, you have done the work. And I think the only thing, you know, my job, I always saw my job as legally supporting what was happening, right? That was my job. And we worked with all kinds of organizations around Texas, all kinds of work. You know, we ended up with 6 offices in Texas, the Valley, Austin, El Paso, my favorite, you know, Odessa, Dallas, Houston. But our job was always to work with the community, right? Was to support what the community was doing, to take our guidance from the community. And I think that's really important always to keep in mind, is that the people that went before us brought us to where we are today. And our responsibility to that heritage is to pass it on. And I think that's really important for us to always understand, is that we're passing it on. We owe a lot for the people in front of us, right? The people that were lynched, shot in the back by the Texas Rangers in the valley. Lynched here in Austin in front of the courthouse. And we owe it to them that we're where we are today. But they would not expect that we would stop, that we keep going. So that was always, I think, our philosophy with the Civil Rights Project, the Texas Civil Rights Project, was to be in the community and be part of it, be part of the community, right? And support the community in any way that we could support it. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Really great stories. So everywhere I talk these days, I usually have either a client or a defendant. Here today as a client, picketing at Whole Foods during the UFW boycott. But I was telling the story. So Mackey sued us, right? Because he didn't like it. This is back when the old Whole Foods was a Lamar, right? That would flood all the time. Every time it rained, it would flood. So Mackey did not like, Mackey's a real jerk anyway. But he did not like the picketers. So he sued us, sued the farm workers. But the reason he had to dismiss his lawsuit is that one of the customers found out that they were repackaging Sara Lee as Whole Foods. And she went into Sugar Shock when and so she filed a complaint with Whole Foods, with the health department, and that's why they withdrew the lawsuit. Because they didn't want that bad PR. You can imagine, you think you're buying something good and it's Sara Lee. Anyway, so there are a lot of good stories like that. But I think, I'm actually doing a memoir right now. And it's really given me the time to reflect on my work. And my work and how it fits in with the community. And what are the, larger than that, what are some of the things that go on, I think, in terms of how we organize, how we work for justice. So I think, for me, I was kind of thinking about this the other day, there's kind of like 3 stages to this. I think one, for me, was to get involved because it was justice. It was the right thing to do. Support people that are fighting for justice. That was the right thing to do, right? And then I think the second thing that happened to me was to get so I could understand that the community had its own wisdom. The community had its own knowledge, and the idea was how to guide this through the legal system. But to respect that knowledge, the goals of the community, I thought was really, really important. And that was the second thing, I think, that I really learned. The third thing, I think I got to, and this involved, we did a lot of work involved with violence against women. A lot of immigrant women are brought into the country who are undocumented and abused, right? And so there's this VAWA program where they can get status and be in the country and separate from their abusive spouse and get a work permit and get a path to citizenship. We did hundreds of those cases. But what I learned watching those women go through that process of separating, they're in a foreign country, right? They're here, and they don't speak English. They're afraid of police given their own history in their own countries. And their spouse is saying, you report me, I'm going to get you deported. All that oppression. And then to have that program where we could work with them, free them from their spouse, get them on that path to a work permit, and watch them thrive. It was amazing to me how many women set up small businesses. It was really, but that was the third part, I think, of where and it sort of came out of this. There's a poem by Hafiz, who's a Sufi mystic, around 1300, somewhere around there. But he talks about being the hole in the flute of the music, right? And so when I'm watching these women make their music with their kids on their own, a new life, that's where I saw that was sort of what my role was as the lawyer, right? To be that hole in the flute so they could make their music. Not what I thought or what the judge, it was how to help them make their music in their lives. So I think all of you that have been involved here, and man, I have enormous respect for you all of the work that we've done, you know, and all of the work that has gone on throughout the state. Austin is only one part of the movement, and it's a big part. But think about it. The movement, what you all have done here, is replicated in Corpus Christi, in the Valley, San Antonio. Boy, San Antonio's got the history. El Paso, right? And what you did fed them, and what they did fed Austin, right? It was a large movement. You know, every step that you all took was part of that larger progress toward that. Martin Luther King used to call it the arc of justice, right? John Lewis called it good trouble. My favorite phrase there, good trouble. So, the other thing that I was reflecting, I was you know, there's a retired group of agitators right now. But one of the things that we talk about, and this is one thing that I wanted to bring up today. One of the things that we talk about is the difference in the generations, right? What we have to do is we respect the new generation just as we expected the people in front of us to respect us, right? When we were the agitators coming out of college, high school. But I think one of the things that I think is really important, there's a lot of emphasis on social media, which is fine, is good. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that we still have to meet in person, right? So one of the things I watched with farm workers organizing with CESA was house meetings. So what we did, so in the valley you have all these colonias, right? You have about 200 colonias. They're sort of like rural ghettos, if you want to use an old term, right? And so the idea was to go to each colonia and have a house meeting. Or that's how you would organize that, house meeting. You have people get together, talk, and then 3 steps, but the third step is you're walking out the door, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What's the problem? How do we deal with it? And what are you going to do about it? And that really increased the power of the union in South Texas. It became a political power, still is a political power in the valley, right? And I remember during the election when Barack Obama was running, here in Austin, we had house meetings. So Willie Velasquez, who used to run the Southwest Voter Registration Project, I think it was called, and who unfortunately died pretty young. But he said something that I think was really true. He said, you could have a Republican show up at a house of a Democrat, the guy who's always, or a family who's always voted Democratic, ask for the vote and would get it because of that personal contact. Mm-hmm. And you know in the culture, that is big time. To show up at the door and ask, right? And that's the power of the house meeting. When we're doing social media only, it's one-on-one, and we're talking to people that want to hear us. If you're in a group, if we sat down right now and talked about how do we deal with this particular issue in Austin, we're gonna get all different views. But then hopefully at the end of that meeting, we will have an idea of where we're going. We're all gonna change our ideas in that meeting, right? We're all gonna change how we think that we ought to do something. But that is the key, I think, to organizing, is to have that personal contact. And I saw it happen. I saw it happen in the valley, you know. We had those house meetings. Every year then we had a convention, farm workers, 200-300 people would show up, CESA would come, right? And what did we do? We passed workers' comp for farm workers. Never, if they were injured in the field, didn't have any workers' comp. Like all the other workers in Texas. If you get hurt, you have workers' comp. Farm workers didn't change that law. Farm workers would not get unemployment insurance. We changed that law. Farm workers didn't have toilets in the fields. Can you imagine? Not having toilets, they're not working. So you know what we had to do? Especially with the women. Women had to form a circle so that the person that needed to, and think about that, how humiliating that is. And everybody lost time. Can you imagine not having toilets in the field? And then El Cortito, which was the short-handled hoe left over from slavery. And the reason you have the Cortito is that if you stand up, then the overseer is going to say, the contratista is going to say, well, you're not working hard, right? That's purely out of slavery. We got rid of that. But that's through organizing. That was through the house meetings. I can't tell you before we organize how many times we come to the legislature and ask for this law to change and how many times the person would just laugh. But when you get organized, when you all of a sudden represent a lot of votes, then it changes. So that, I think, that's, for me, the big message today is to really think about how we organize. As you said, we are at a crisis in this country. About everything you can think of, we are in crisis, right? We have, I could sit here and, you know what we're going through. We never expected we'd see something like this, right? We made a lot of progress, and all of a sudden we're looking at losing everything. And so how do we deal with it? How do we organize? The one thing that we don't do, at least my generation, we never talk about this. We never sit down at family gatherings and have the political talk. Really? Is that important to us? Right? We don't do it. Thanksgiving, everybody talks about everything else other than politics. Christmas, right? All of that. We got to talk about this stuff. But I think we also have to get our neighbors together. We've got to have meetings, and we've got to join with other groups. We got to do that. It's not the way we like to do stuff, or we're accustomed to do it, but it's the way that things happen. That's the way organizing happens. I want to come back and admire everything you all have done. It is fantastic. And one of the things that we never see everything get to where we want it to get, but we got to have that faith that it was one step to get where it needs to get, and when it gets there, then it goes on to the next step, right? That's our role. We got to have that faith in what we're doing and what people have done for us, because at the end of the day, it's all about community. It's all about community, right? If you look at the attacks right now going on, I mean, they're anti-community. They're really anti-community attacks going on to break us up instead of fostering community. So I'm going to end. I'm happy to take questions, but I always try to end with a quotation. And so what I got today is when Robert Kennedy was running for president before he was assassinated, of course. When he declared that he was running, he had to, they have to travel. Candidates travel to Europe to increase their foreign policy cred, right? This was the name of the game then. And Kennedy was also, an awesome friend of the farm workers. He went out, Cesar was on a 30-day fast, and he went out and participated in that. Anyway, he went to South Africa back in the days of apartheid. And he had to choose. Do I speak at a white university, or do I speak at a black university? This is apartheid. So he chose the white university because he was trying to get them to understand they had to break apartheid. They're the ones who had the power to break apartheid, right? And so he gave this really eloquent talk, and this is just part of it. But this is about you and about our job. Each time a person stands for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, that person sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. The greatest danger in our time is timidity. Few are willing to brave the disapproval of their fellows, the censure of their colleagues, the wrath of their society. Moral courage is a rarer commodity than bravery in battle or great intelligence. Yet, moral courage is the one essential, vital quality of those who seek to change a world that yields most painfully to change. Those, you, with the courage to enter that moral conflict, will find themselves with companions in every corner of the globe. And it's great to be here in our corner of the globe with you moral companions. Thank you.